Hey, mama. Have you ever guested on a podcast and felt like nothing came from it? Or maybe you've guested on 5, 10 podcasts and haven't signed a client from it, haven't generated any leads from it. Well, I got you. Today, we are diving into the number one reason why your podcast interviews aren't leading to conversions. Now, I'm just focusing on one reason in this episode because I will be diving into the other reasons during my free masterclass. So, if you want to know all of the juicy details, all the tea on how to leverage podcast interviews, as well as other low effort visibility strategies to generate leads and income for your business, head on over to mamaturnedmompreneur.com/masterclass to grab your spot for the masterclass. But all right, let's get into the number one reason why your podcast interviews aren't leading to conversions. Hey mama, are you tired of feeling stressed and overwhelmed trying to grow your online business with your babies at home? You desire more flexibility in your day, allowing you to pour into your family, yourself, and your business without running yourself into the ground. Mama, you can build your dream business and do it in a way that fits your current season of life. And I'm going to show you exactly how. Welcome to the Mama Turned Mompreneur podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Singletary, daughter of the king, wife, mama of 2, and life and business coach for mompreneurs. On this podcast, you will learn business strategies made for mamas just like you, who desire to be successful CEOs and fully present mamas without stress or overwhelm. So whether you're an entrepreneur who transitioned to a mompreneur or a mama turned mompreneur, I am here to support you. So grab your coffee, notebook, and pen, put in those earbuds, and let's dig in. All right, so the number one mistake you are making with podcast guesting and why your podcast interviews aren't converting is not having signature topics that connect to your offers. This is huge because if you think about it, any way we create content, whether that's Instagram, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a blog, whether it's YouTube, whatever it may be, that's the top of your funnel. That's how you're bringing in new leads, and you have to move people along that funnel. And so this applies to podcast interviews too. You have to look at that as being the top of your funnel, how you're generating leads. And you have to really think strategically, what do I need to do to move this person down into the funnel until they actually reach my offer and convert into that offer? So you want to make sure that those signature topics that you're pitching yourself for on these different podcasts connect to your offers. So how do you do that? Well, you want to start with the end in mind. So this looks like going through your offer suite, or if you just have a signature offer, really digging in deep into that offer or those different offers and really pulling out those main things that demonstrate your expertise and really highlighting, when you're pitching yourself to be a guest on these different podcasts, like highlighting something unique about it, not to dive too deep into like podcast pitching strategy, because like I said, we'll be diving into that in the masterclass, but you want to essentially put these signature topics together in a way that is going to stand out. So for instance, looking at the podcast that you want to guest on, going through the different interviews that have already been done and just the episodes in general to see like, okay, how can I put this like unique spin on it or really make it stand out? But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that the topics that you're coming up with, the signature topics for these interviews that you're pitching yourself to be on, you want to make sure it connects to your offers. And just to kind of like start with the basics, like you got to have signature topics. So I get pitches all the time for my podcast. And the difference between the people who make it on my podcast and those who don't is whether or not they have signature topics, but also whether or not they're clearly communicating, what it is that they do, who they serve within those signature topics. If I'm looking at your signature topic and I still have no clue what it is that you do, or I'm confused by it and not intrigued by it, I'm not going to have you as a guest on my podcast, because automatically my mind is going to, well, if I'm just confused by this, then are they going to confuse my audience during the interview? And so that's what podcast hosts are thinking about, because it's not just us thinking about, oh, I want this guest on my podcast, but it's always from the perspective of, how is my audience going to receive this? How are they going to perceive it? What are they going to get out of this? Is this actually going to benefit them? So you really want to make sure that your signature topics are on point, but also that it's going to be relevant to that audience. Like your offers are relevant to the audience. So it's not just about impressing the podcast host, but really considering their audience. So you really want to like make sure you nail those signature topics down. And like I said, I've seen it, like the signature topics are so broad where it's like, well, you can go in a million different directions with this. And that's not what we want. Like, we really want to make sure as podcast hosts that it's going to be relevant information, but it's not going to be so much information that it's so overwhelming for our audience. So that's why when you connect your signature topics to your offers, like, your offers, them inside and out. You know the purpose of each of your offers, what those offers specifically do, the transformation they bring about, the results they help your clients get, the purpose of your offers. And so to simplify coming up with your signature topics, start with your offers, dig into your offers, go read your sales pages and pull out main points, key points there. Coming up with signature offers does not have to be hard. It does not have to be complicated. Like, one of my signature topics is how to build a business off socials. That stands out to people. That's why if you're on my email list, the past few summits that I've spoken at, that was essentially like how to build a business off socials as a mom. Like, that's essentially been it. And that's really stood out to the host because I was essentially like one of the only ones speaking on that. And even I have ways to tweak it, because another one, it was a summit that was basically about building a biz off socials. So I came at it from the perspective of, well, I have a strategy for actually stepping away from socials. So it's all connected though, and it ties into what it is that I do, how I support my clients. So you really want to come at it from that perspective. Like, broad is not the way to go. Broad is confusing. Broad is like, I don't know what direction you're actually going to go in. And broad does not connect to your offers, because you're guesting on these podcasts to generate leads, to get your name out there, to build your authority. But if people aren't clear in what it is that you do, what you're actually trying to build your authority in, what your expertise is, that's just going to lead to audience confusion. And that is why you aren't seeing conversions. So make sure that you start with your signature offers. That's what you want to focus on. So for instance, when I was getting ready to launch the next round of my Get It Done week, I did some podcast guesting. And so I really focused on talking about, leveraging podcasting to build your business, to generate leads and income for your business. And so I guested on a podcast, And that is what I talked about. I really demonstrated my expertise in that area and really talked about how podcasting is an effective marketing strategy. And you know what? Because I connected it back to that Get It Done week, I signed a client from that interview. It was probably like about a couple of weeks after the interview went live, I signed a client from it. But I was strategic in how I did that. And so that's what you want to make sure you're being strategic. Like, you aren't just getting on podcasts to chit chat with somebody. That's not what we're doing. Like, we're leveraging it for our business. And so you have to think strategically. How are these signature topics going to connect back to my offers, where I ultimately want people to go? So if you are like ready to get into podcast guesting, or maybe, like I said, you've tried before and it just hasn't been effective for you, join me for the masterclass. We're really going to be diving into podcast guesting, bundle collaborations, and speaking engagements, but really looking at how to strategically use these different visibility strategies to generate leads and income for your business. It does not have to be complicated. It gets to be easy, but you have to know what you're doing. You have to really think about it strategically. There are things that you really need to consider and dive into to ensure that you're effectively leveraging these different platforms for your business. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So grab your spot for the free masterclass at mamaturnedmompreneur.com/masterclass. I hope to see you inside. We're about a week away from it. You do not want to miss this. And even if you can't attend live, you are going to get the replay. And I highly recommend you watch the replay if you don't attend live, because it's going to help you. Especially if you want to step back from social media some because you're either burnt out from it, or just trying to keep up with it isn't realistic for you right now, or maybe you're just not seeing results from it. This masterclass is going to help you. All right, Mama, I'll catch you in the next episode. Well, Mama, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang with me. If you enjoyed today's episode, will you do me a favor and follow the podcast and leave a review? Hitting that follow button and sharing your thoughts about the podcast are the best ways to ensure that other mamas like you find this show. Your review also lets me know if you're enjoying this podcast, so make sure to share your thoughts before you go. All right, Mama, I'll catch you in the next episode.